Greetings, as I, Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome one and all. Are you having a great day out there? I hope you are, and I hope you're ready to join me for discussing some more Magic the Gathering lore, another plane. But this is a plane that I have visited before. I've been to Zendikar in one of my older videos, but we're doing a little bit of a deeper dive. We're taking that like another couple steps deeper, so if you want to join me for a bit more information than I revealed last time, hey, thank you for joining me. Whether, of course, it's on Twitch over there or YouTube later on. And if you over on YouTube, please appease the dark algorithm, like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that kind of stuff. And to both sides, my question for the day, of course, is, what do you think of Zendikar? Have you enjoyed all the sets that were related to it as the plane? What do you think of the setting? Is it one that you're anticipating another visit to? Certainly speaking, there's been a lot for something like Ravnica, but, you know, the goodwill in that is always burnt. Anyway, shall we dive into it and talk about Zendikar? Well, to begin with, I think we should start talking about what is Zendikar. Well, historically, when it comes to the actual card game, it is a set, a number of sets. The original Zendikar block came out, where it was first introduced, and then it had two sequels, of course, the Battle for Zendikar, which was the culmination of the Eldrazi when it came to Zendikar, basically a direct sequel to the original block, and then Zendikar Rising, a kind of companion piece to figure out what's going on afterwards. And it is a very adventure-filled world. That's the best way to describe it. Also, it's defined currently as a 2 on the Ravia scale, so keep that in mind. It means we are going to revisit Ravia at some point. It's an easy enough plane to revisit. It's 1. The lower numbers of the Ravia scale, more likely we're going to revisit it. So, yeah. Now, not only are they recovering from the Eldrazi attacks, but hey, new Phyrexia invaded too, so they're recovering from both of those things. We'll talk about when we talk about the history of it. But why has this plane been an interesting one story-wise? Certainly speaking, set-wise, there's been a lot of interesting ideas, but the plane itself is quite mana-rich. And mana flows a little differently in Zendikar than some of the other planes. And this kind of richness in mana and wealth of other material has made it actually a attractive destination for both explorers of planeswalker variety and those that live upon the plane. So this combination of, oh, we can go find ancient artifacts, powerful mana sources, hey, it appeals to explorers of all kinds, planeswalkers, and the non-planeswalkers versions. And I'm going to switch to Akouma here, the mountain range, for a moment. I will talk about Akouma in a second, but I want to talk about the overall geography of Zendikar. So, one thing about Zendikar is its landscape is constantly shifting and changing in a process called the Royal. It means that it is a highly geologically unstable region across the entire planet. It means that very few settlements exist, major ones, and outposts of civilizations are usually found in slightly more stable areas. The Royal itself is connected to the mana of the planet, but it does mean that the climate can change rapidly, the planet itself can change rapidly. You know, you could have giant shards of earth explode from the earth, random extreme weather, floods and tidal waves, sinkholes, tectonic shifts, earthquakes, geysers of natural, noxious gas. All this stuff could just occur. It also animates elementals that go along with it. And one of the only people that exist that can actually kind of read the Royal are the Merfolk, who kind of sense it a little bit. And this is, to describe what the Royal is just a little bit now, we'll talk about it when it originated. It is technically a defense mechanism the plane created for the Eldrazi to fight against them. So, yeah. It's a kind of natural barrier, though. Now, beyond the Royal, we have to talk about the 7 continents of Zendikar. Akouma, Bala Ged, Guul Draz, Murasa, Ondu, Sejiri, and Tazeem. 3 of those continents, Bala Ged, Sejiri, and Tazeem, were devastated in the battle against the Eldrazi. Now they are recovering because Nissa used the lithiform core, and we'll talk about that. But again, these continents were heavily devastated. Another big major part of the geography of Zendikar is the Hedrons. We'll talk about their origin, but they litter the landscape. Their exact origin is not known to most. We'll talk about it, you'll learn. But they have these gravity-defying existence, and they're connected to both strange bouts of gravity and the mana of the plane. They're ancient rune-carved monoliths that are strewn across it. Some can be up to 10 miles long. Some can drift in the sky. Others are buried in the ground. Some are just broken. Also, beyond these, there are ruins, some of them sometimes connected to the Hedrons, others to ancient civilizations that once existed on Zendikar. So you can find this mysterious past that, once existed here, great civilizations that, planeswalkers and local explorers go to. You have to remember, Royal, I said, came about as a process of fighting against the Eldrazi, who aren't native to Zendikar and came in here. So those ancient empires from before the Royal existed would have been stable. Akouma. It is the red mana-aligned territory. It's geologically unstable. At the center of it is a massive supervolcano. A lot of magma flows from crevices in the earth. There's crystalline fields that are razor-sharp, cutting through skin and bone. Areas of extreme temperatures where during the day it can be skin burning. During the night it can cause frostbite. This is a place where those gas vents can just burst out, where there's got strange trees and plant life and those weird biomes. Where insect-like creatures and carnivorous plants are the dominant flora and fauna. Yeah. And Akouma connects to the subcontinent of Bala Ged through underground rivers, and a small sea separates Akouma from Ondu. So that's basically the red mana area, if you want to talk about it. Some smaller areas in there are Atha, Gomafada, Taltig, Ora Ondor, the Glass Pool, Glasshaven, Akouma Skyclave, Aroga Thruway, Akuma's Belt, and Passive Woe. Won't get into details about them. Those are some. You can visit there. For those looking to those yourself on cards or looking. Let's talk about Bala Ged. So Bala Ged is none of the continents, and a giant marsh separates it from Guul Draz. Because it's also connected through underground rivers to Akouma, these three are kind of like one giant continent, very similar to like how, Asia, Europe are connected together, but considered two different continents in our world. These three are sort of connected together, but considered different continents because of their geological kind of changes to them. It's a realm of dense jungles and deep marshes with hidden bogs, limestone caves and tunnels underground, sacrificial altars, rune-scribed chambers. It's a treacherous environment. It was overrun and pretty much destroyed by the Eldrazi. It was an unfortunate thing that it was just filled with corrupted into nightmares, horrors. What remained of it that wasn't just devastated was just corrupted by the presence of Eldrazi. And now the Lithophone Core has been allowing it to slowly recover from this, to return to what it was. The influence of the Eldrazi being removed, the devastation beginning to heal. Let's talk Guul Draz. Guul Draz is another of the continents. As I said, there's a giant marsh that separates it from Bala Ged. It's a humid region of lagoons and tangled fetid swamps. You do see humans and merfolks doing business here on the waters. It is homeland to the non-native Zendikar vampires. We'll talk about their origins. Predators are in the wild, traps in the hindered mangroves and around settlements. Rancid waterways turn to vast marshes and swamps, conceal predators and plagues. And there's more ruins here than anywhere else. I didn't mention on Bala Ged there's the Groom Wilds, Tangled View, and Bala Ged Skyclave, so those are the few things. In Guul Draz there's Malachar, which is actually one of the most well-developed cities in Zendikar. and is controlled by the vampire families, the Hagrum Cistern, Hanging Jungle, Free City of Nimana, and the Guul Draz Sky. Talk about Murasa. So Murasa is the walled continent. That's what it's known as. It's got a vast, steep-walled plateau that rises sharply from the sea around it. It is smaller than the other continents of Zendikar. Behind these kind of sheer rise, these outer cliffs, the land drops in elevation, is dominated by hills, deep jungle-filled valleys. Several highland areas are also present. A lot of people say it's impossible to sail past the continent, as there's something that draws travelers to the shores. It's home to immense flora, including massive, multi-trunk habras trees whose roots entwine underground to make it one titanic organism. There's the trees that grow blade-shaped prows that break waves from reaching the shore, and also deter ships from landing in Sunder Bay. It has Jorwell trees whose thorns leak a thick green sap that can knock creatures unconscious, and these contain a kind of mean intelligence, which they can only move by growing, but they do slowly. But they have an intelligence actually behind them that they grow purposely. Kanazdu is known to be the house of the Jadi trees, towering trees that continually grow and never die. So yeah, the Murasa Wall surrounds it. There's the cliffs of Kazul, Sunder Bay, or Sunder Cove, the Glint Pass, the Pillar Plain, Skyfang Mountains, Now Plateau, Living Spire, and Kazundu. Murasa Sky Cliffs. Okay. We'll talk about Ondu. Ondu. So what do we know about Ondu? It's one of the 7 continents. It's a short distance away from Akouma. It's composed of one central landmass with 3 major islands off its coast. The large southernmost island is Agadim, a smaller temperate Behim, and a tiny sea-swept Jawar. It is located southwest quadrant of Zendikar and juts into the Sulundi Sea. It is composed of 1 central landmass and 3, as I said, it is dominated by a sense of sweeping verticality. Precarious Makindi trenches, the skyscraping trees of the turn timber, and the depths of the crypt of Agadim all contribute to the strange sensation that travelers can do, occurring up and down rather than east and west. And the capital of the Great Core Empire, which we'll talk about, was located here, Makindi. So Makindi trenches, Kamatari said, Agadim, Bayim, Jawar, Serpent's Maw, Cliffhaven, probably, are all here. Let's talk Sejiri. Sejiri. It's a vast ice tundra surrounded by cliffs. It's in the northern pole. It's constantly covered in permafrost tundra and wind-blasted mountains, impossibly tall cliffs that encircle the continent. Despite being inhospitable, generally speaking, there's goblins, Felidars, rift drakes, wolves, yetis, snow rocks, elks, sphinxes that all make home in these wastes here. It's also home to enormous floating stone urns that spill avalanches of ice and snow on unsuspecting travelers. And there are still many ruins that explorers can travel to. The Midnight Pass, Kiral, a settlement, Ben Hitrix, the Chill Depths, and the Sejiri Skyclave are all here. And finally, of the continents, we can talk about Tazeem. Tazeem being, unfortunately, of the list. Remember, the Sejiri, Bala Ged, and Tazeem were the most devastating. And Tazeem has been devastated. Sunlight is obscured by large hedrons that float in the sky here. It's surrounded by unstable scrub and lichen-covered calcified flats. Its perilous combination of reef rock forest, deep inland seas, and great whitewater rivers that bisect the continent. There are some ancient ruins that are partially visible and have been co-opted by the dissidents of there. Many remain hidden and intact. Mysterious artifacts to be discovered there, and it is the home to the plains' native merfolk. The Miri the Sky Ruin was here, Halamar, Skyrock, Oran Reef Forest, Umra River, Coralhelm, Loon Bulwark, Jade Room, Hada Town, North Hada, ruins of Yesterd, and the Ren Grotto all exist here. And those are the locations, the geography there. When we talk about geography and the locations there, we also have to talk about, well, who the hell lives in Zendikar? Well, the plane is inhabited by goblins, elves, merfolks, humans. Of course, they're non-native vampires. And it is the home to the core. It is assumed that the core that you find on any other plane were originally abducted from those, to those other planes from Zendikar. So this is supposed to be their home plane. There are other races that can be found here. Angels, ogres, minotaurs, giants. The Surakar are questionably intelligent and sentient. They're reptilians. They seem to be extinct. A sort of wildlife from insects to beasts. There's also things like the Gomaza, which are adapted to flying topography, kind of like a weird jellyfish creatures. But yeah. So for sapient races, angels, archons, demons, elves, giants, goblins, humans, core, which are being shown here. Let's actually make it a little larger. We'll do a larger core here, just for a second. Never mind. Merfolk, minotaurs, ogres, shades, shapeshifters, sphinxes, spirits, Surakar, trolls, and a well-grouped there. And some of the culture of Zendikar we do know about. A popular game among adventuring parties and expeditionary houses is the game called Conquest, which is played by a 15-card deck, including Cunning Foe, Victory, and Power. Each card represents individuality, and adventurers take turns sharing stories related to the shown card. The player with the most impressive story takes the card. The player with the most cards at the end of the game wins. Now, let's talk history of Zendikar. We have to dive into the ancient past of Zendikar to know about its most earliest civilization, which is the Core Empire. And this is before the Eldrazi were imprisoned on the plane. Because there are actually more civilizations than the Core Empire. There was a variety of ones that have been on all the continents, which worshipped a myriad of unrecognizable gods. A lot of them have mistaken for Eldrazi ruins, leading to several misconceptions about the gods that were worshipped. Because certainly after the Eldrazi came versions of them that were the gods of Zendikar came into being, so there's this mix-up between those gods and the Eldrazi gods as they were. So, some centuries before the arrival of the Eldrazi, though, the core built their empire. They had a desire to see the world unified in peace and harmony, but the empire grew to an authoritarian state, with the core imposing their ideas, laws, and structures upon the unwilling peoples of the other continents. This imposition bred resistance among their subjects, and as they met with increased resistance to rule, they become more oppressive and tyrannical. As I mentioned, the great capital city was Makindi, and it gave the name to the core empire on Ondu, so it was the Makindi Empire. To maintain the empire's hold of the war, the stone fortress built 7 skycliffs, military bases, government headquarters, and small cities that floated in the sky above each continent. Each skyclave was built around a central power structure like a miniature sun, designed as dozens of floating platforms that could close tightly into a sealed, hollow sphere for defense. They endured centuries of the core's rule. The iron grip began to weaken, and over a century, the skyclaves began to fall to the ground, and only a myriad sky ruin remained in the air. Now, we have to turn to 6,000 years before the timeline of the Battle of Zendikar. So this is Battle of Zendikar set 6,000 years before. I'm not even talking about the original Zendikar block, the battle. The 3 great planeswalkers basically saw the threat of the Eldrazi. These were, of course, Ugin, Sorin, and Nahiri. Ugin, the great ghost dragon, Sorin, Markov, a powerful vampire from Innistrad, and Nahiri from Zendikar. They saw what the Eldrazi were doing. They were destroying planes. And they decided that the only way to stop the Eldrazi, these creatures of the in-between who could travel the planes, was to trap them in a physical form so they were no longer this astral beings and trap them on a plane, basically sacrificing that plane for the well-being of the multiverse. They wanted to find a plane that had lush ecosystems and uniquely dynamic mana, a lure for the Eldrazi's hunger. The 3 agreed, with Nahir's agreement because she decided on, agreed to it, to use Zendikar. Nahir was from Zendikar, but she saw it as the most useful plane for it. So Soren then lured the Eldrazi to the plane, directing their hunger to the mana. Ugin used their breath to combat the Eldrazi with his colorless magic, to bind them to the plane, and Nahir had constructed the Hedrons that we see, whose power would form the bars of a plane-wide prison, preventing them from leaving. Ugin then arranged for the Hedrons to collect the ray line energy, which were not to be disrupted. They were eventually. The Planeswalker concentrated their power on their imprisonment spell in a secret location deep in the Akouma Mountains, in a subterranean chamber known as the Eye of Ugin. And to make sure the imprisonment would not be broken, the three Planeswalkers sealed the chamber with a mystic lock, the Eye of Ugin, which only could be reactivated by the presence of three Planeswalker sparks. The colorless, the invisible breath of Ugin, the Spirit Dragon. The Planeswalkers' trap worked. Emrakul, Ulamog, and Kozilek, the three titans of the Eldrazi, their progenitors, manifested physically on Zendikar, and they confined by the magic by the Hedrons, and thanks to the imprisonment spell, sank harmlessly into dormancy. With their mission complete, the Planeswalkers disbanded. Soren and Ugin left the plane, had their own things to do, and Nahir remained to watch over Zendikar and the prison. Basically, she's like, okay, I'm gonna watch over my place. Now, unfortunately, for the plane, there was an awakening of the Eldrazi before the time as we know it. A few thousand years after this, by the three, basically, Ulamog began an infection on the people that lived near the Akouma Mountains. Akouma was technologically unstable, it's a dangerous region, in general, even without the royal, so these were crazed people to kind of go here, but they did. And they became a cult of devoted to this image deity of the mountains, established temples near the site of the prison, began performing rituals inspired by the growing madness they have, and they've managed to avoid the notice of Nahir, who became reclusive over time, over these generations and thousands of years. And these rituals loosened the bonds of the Eldrazi. With the network disturbed, the prison proved tenuous, though, and it came close to breaking free. A fraction of their power was able to emerge, and a legion of Eldrazi drones were released, including a powerful child, one of the blood of Ulamog, Zuladok, who emerged and awakened, and basically whispered mad into the mind of the cultists. Zulmog raised the land, siphoned mana, and basically was preparing for the return of the Titans. They marched across the lands, seeking to satiate its hungers. Mountains were crushed as weak, splintered and carved out by its monstrous forces. In a single night of feeding, carved out the Windblast Gorge, which was once a towering mountain range. Zuldok's presence inspired hunger and thirst that could never be quenched, driving enemies to consume each other ahead of its advance, causing famine, which even affected Ulamog's followers. Though they understand this hunger was a gift, they followed it willingly. And following the path of carnage, the cultists who helped free the Eldrazi saw the power of consumption and turned it to flesh and blood into power. And 12 survived and became the progenitors of the vampire race of Zendikar. Basically, the cultists here became the vampires, those that survived. Nahir basically noticed what was going on, sent aid to Soren and Ugin. They didn't answer. So she went to the disturbance, managed to repair the network, each network, and returned the Eldrazi to its slumber. And then slew Zuldok and sealed the remaining Eldrazi that escaped in a Hedronic prison again. But the vampires would whisper the name of Ulamog as a prophet for millennia to come, and a curse against Zendikar itself. So yeah. Of course, there were other visitors. Urza visited, looked at the Hedrons, helped fight the Phyrexians that he was fighting, but abandoned the idea. But now we have to get into the releasing of the Eldrazi in the battle for Zendikar. Yeah. Because meeting of Sarkhanval, Sandra Nalaar, and Jacebear in the Eye of Ugin chamber loosened the bonds of the Eldrazi and Tokor, and they rose once more. Basically, 3 planeswalkers showed up and screwed the job. So, effectively, that thousands of years ago, when the Eldrazi had first awoken, The destruction was vast. The power was unfathomable. Humanoids couldn't slow it. The three... It took the power of at least one of the three to return the Eldrazi to sleep. But that response, the awakening which created the vampires, is when the Royal came about to fight the drones. And it's when humanoids within Zendikar began to receive mana infusion and, to become evolved. And the Royal also intensified when the Titans were released. So we now have 2 years since that release. Seagate and Tazeem and the entire content of Sejiri and Bala Ged. Seagate on Tazeem, the entire content of Sejiri and Bala Ged were overrun. Adventurers of Zendikar, outgunned as they were not folding to the abominations. Gideon Jura took command, gathered allies in defense of the Vampires of Malakar joined in, as well as the Royal Mages and Koira, another Planeswalker native to Zendikar, joining merfolk and sea monsters. They managed to retake Seagate and fortify it. They basically had won a victory. But Ulamog was approaching. And they came up with a new plan. Nissa was going to call upon elemental power of the earth to raise the sunken hedrons from the ground and move a ring around the Eldrazi Titan. Drace activated the hedrons with magic, and Ulamog was trapped. The idea was to reseal Ulamog. Remember, Ulamog's the only one's woken up right now. Kozilek and Emrakul aren't there. But Obnixilis appeared. He followed Nissa from Bala Ged. He slaughtered the core guys, siphoned the power from the hedrons, reignited his spark, and in a fact of vengeance, destroyed the hedron network, and basically the Kozilek awakened next. So now you have 2 Titans out. Emrakul and Shimar. Well. So things went from bad to worse. But it wasn't the end. The hedron network shattered. The Oath of the Gatewatch occurred. Because the Planeswalkers dedicated to stopping Eldrazi were defeated by Mistrand, Kozilek, and his distortions. General Tazeem was saved by protection of her halo. She regrouped with a number of her powerful leaders. And Chandra showed up, freed her Planeswalker friends. And they managed to drive away Obnixilis from Zendikar. As much as he had kind of fucked the plane. The 4 Planeswalkers that were rare were released. They were helpless against the threats on their own. And they could but they're working together. They formed the Gatewatch. And seeing as he could not keep his promise to Ugin to neither harm the Eldrazi nor allow her to escape from Zendikar, Jace decided to slay the Titans with the Gatewatch and Koira's help. He consulted with Nissa and described the leyline patterns to her so she could bind Kozilek and Ulamog to Zendikar, drawing the bulk of the Titans to the plane so that their energy could be dispersed into Zendikar, killing them in the process. To attract them, the remaining forces of Zendikar's defender would pose as bait. The plan worked, at first, with Gideon keeping the Eldrazi swarms away from the Arma, Corey clearing out the other swarms, and Chandra supporting them. Once the Titans were anchored to Zendikar, the destructive essence threatened to assimilate Zendikar into themselves, disrupting the entire plane at once. Koira tried to persuade Nissa to release the Titans, allow them to flee, but Jace objected. Chandra offered to burn them instead, and prevented Koira from attacking Nissa. Jace agreed. Chandra connected with all the ley lines of the Zendikar, the energy of it, channeled her pyromantic magic through it and into the Titans. And in a brilliant blaze, Ulamog and Kozilek were incinerated and destroyed, raining ashes on them. And of course, Zendikar and its civilization was left to rebuild under General Tazeem. So, now, I get those moves. I did. I switched some things around. That's fine. I'll figure it out. Alright. We'll just do that. I think I mixed up my images. I'll just combine a couple of them together, too. I think if I only have them like that. So, the plane still has the Royal. It's like you're inflamed after an infection. The Royal remains active, either at destruction of the Eldrazi. And it's still a hazard to anybody that lives in Zendikar. Maybe the Royal will eventually fall away, calm down, but for now, it's there. And there was a need to rebuild Seagate. Seagate was the kind of seat of unified Zendikar. And so there was a reconstruction plan, there was arguments about it, basically 5 different houses, expeditionary houses argued about it, and eventually Commander Tazeem drafted the plan and got the support of Linvala, and so within a year, Seagate was restored. Expeditions began to ascend to the ruins of Emeria, discover the remnants of the skyclave that was once there, where the merfolk had claimed once the castle of their goddess. They triggered the Magistrate's defense of the ancient skyclave and awakened the other 6. All 7 skyclaves rose back into the air and opened above every continent. There were now these shattered ruins of these skyclaves floating in the sky, drifting along the clouds, more than just these floating hedrons. And so some of that had broken off chunks that were not really easily reachable, that floated up too, that were floating around. So there's free-floating structures out of the reach of your average adventurer, but were temptations. These inaccessible regions, though, were very difficult to get to, so you didn't really have adventurers going that far. But the skyclaves were filled with treasure. The 2 guardians of Zendikar returned, but were odds at how to resume it. Nahiri was guilt-ridden, and vowed to negate the Royal using ancient core technology. She didn't care this would accomplish at the cost of loss of lives. Nissa opposed her, and in the end, Nissa's plan prevailed, and restored the soil and wild nature using the Lithithorn form. Basically, the 2 of them had different ideas. Nissa was like, let the Royal fade on its own. I have lived during that entire time it's existed. We, the people of Zendikar, can live with it. While Nahiri was like, no, I have to undo all the damage I did to Zendikar. Because she brought the Eldrazi there in the first place. She wanted to undo it all. Now we go to this one here, because it's the other side of the Phyrezian Invasion of the Multiverse card. Yes, if you flip it over there, the Battle for Invasion of Zendikar card flips to this. So, yes, Zendikar was targeted by the invasion. Nahiri had been completed and arrived at the Emeria Skyclave and began realigning the hedrons to refabricate the Realm Breaker's incursion plane. She transformed the Skyclave into a weapon of war. The Royal rose to meet her and was defeated until the landscape below shifted into a gray uniform bedrock for miles. Once completed, the Skyclave began to work as a Phyrexian engine, merging stone with metal, lasting flesh across the surface, pouring rivers of oil into the Zendikar's waterways. Phyrexians scurried into Zendikar. Seagate was defeated once more. A party under the command of Tazeem attacked Nahiri at the heart of the transformed Skyclave. Nahiri first gained the upper hand with ease, but the fight turned as the Angels of New Convenda entered the multiverse and gave Angels Everywhere Halo. And Linvala had new strength, and the party managed to break Nahiri loose from the reformed Hedron network and knock her to her feet, and they witnessed the Skyclave breaking and crashing to the ground with Nahiri still inside. Now, what remains after this? Well, we know a little bit of what's after here. Just combine these two, because I think I lost an image somewhere. Must have closed it. So, Norn was defeated. The terraforming remained. Zendikar's ley lines have been damaged. Nahiri is uncompleted. Nahiri and desparked, and worked to remove the metal from the Skyclave, wishing to restore the lands. But, losing her spark means that Nahiri has a much greater mission at hand. Same with, Nissa. Both of them are working to fix what was damaged by this all. Both of them felt Phyrexians, but have been rescued. I can talk about the languages, which I had my own thing for, but now it's going to be part of this one. me losing an image somewhere in my pile of images. Yeah, somehow I lost that one. Yeah. Oh, next one. Wait, no. You know what? I can put together one more image just for everybody. No. There we go. Let's talk about the languages of Zendikar that we know about. So you know there's an ancient core language that has a runic writing system that Nahiri knows, because she is an ancient core. The Great Pelt Tongue, we know about that. There's a little bit more. It's a tongue from Ondu, of course. The Merfolk has a language, highly developed pictographic written language. Upskill is the druidic term for a language of turn timber. It's believed that the creaking of the corkscrew-like trees is a secret language, and many times successfully attempt to understand it. The Fadun of Jawar Isles speak a language unknown to modern scholars, too. Now, we can go over the long list of planeswalkers visited here, but we'll go over a brief bit about the planeswalkers that are native to here, which, unfortunately, none of them retain their sparks, I believe. I know for one, Koira, the Merfolk planeswalker, that has indeed, post-invasion, returned to Zendikar to defend her home during the invasion, because it was vanished from underground. In the aftermath, she did lose her spark in the Great Sparking. So, she battled in the War of the Spark, she survived it, she helped with the Battle of Zendikar, and now has lost her spark. Of course, we can see Nahiri, which we mentioned a lot, who, post a Phyrezian battle where she was completed. In the aftermath, she did manage to see that her spark had survived, and attempted to harbinger it, but in a confrontation with Ajani, it was destroyed then. And she might become a person against planeswalkers now, because she has seen that it lost her spark, and with what planeswalkers has caused to Zendikar of the Eldrazi and everything else, she basically vowed that planeswalkers will never set foot on Zendikar again. So she could be a opponent that way. And of course, finally, we have Nissa Vervain. Involved with a lot of the battle for Zendikar during the Gatewatch, involved with a lot of their activities in the War of the Spark. Of course, being captured and completed by New Phyrexia. And her spark faded during the following days of the Great Sparkening. Though she's technically, I guess, not home, or is, I don't know. Basically, she lost it while she was not on Zendikar, so Koira and Nahiri are on Zendikar. Nissa lost it when she wasn't, but Chandra was last seen accompanying her through the Omen Paths, trying to get to Zendikar, as they are still connected. And that's where we have left off there. And that's it for Zendikar, its planeswalkers, its people, its locations, its history. It's a complex plane, to say the least. And currently it has 0 planeswalkers it connected with. And again, this comes down to your opinions on the Great Disparkening and the storylines of Magic. I, for one, think I'm not a huge fan of it. It's not terrible. I'm kind of in the middle of, you could have gone about this in a lot more interesting way for their storylines. The Open Paths are a neat idea. I'm okay with that. But a lot of the Phyrexian War and stuff like that were weird and Certainly Zendikar has seen its sheer massive amounts of apocalyptic events. Eldrazi existing there have caused problems. And the Eldrazi aren't completely gone. we can talk about what happened on Innistrad and the imprisonment of Emrakul. Emrakul remains, but at least 2 of them are dead. But what does it also mean for Zendikar? Certainly the royal, the infection, the remains of the inflammation from the infection is there. But also, with 2 Titans killed on it, what does that mean for the ley lines, the effects of the plane, the energy of the plane? How could it evolve and change? Will the royal ever go away because of that? There's so many questions that will maybe never be answered, but it does mean that the setting for Zendikar remains an interesting and adventurous area, where we can have sets like Zendikar Rising that can tell interesting and deep stories related to this deep history and ancient cultures that were quite advanced magically and, sort of magic technology. And maybe we can see more of that kind of thing occurring in the future. But the exact depths of what we see next time we visit Zendikar is unknown. I would like to see more sets like Zendikar Rising, with more interesting stories, perhaps involving with maybe Nissa returning home, and conflict with Nahiri, and perhaps even Koira, with these former planeswalkers who have a breadth of experience and are still powerful mages and people to their own right, now dealing with these changes, with what's going on. We don't know where the Path story is going to go, so there's also a lot of questions with that, and, is that going to connect up with Zendikar? Will Nissa be able to return home? There's so many questions and so much stuff going on. It's a mess in the overall storyline, and it does link into Zendikar very often, which is one of those things is we don't have as much Zendikar-focused stories. We got 1 real Zendikar-focused stories. The Eldrazi storyline is a threat to the multiverse, as much as it is only on Zendikar for 4 sets. Really, Zendikar Rising is the only one that is a Zendikar plot. And the invasion of the multiverse had just connected to it. Same with things with War of the Spark. Just kind of connected to it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this deeper dive into Zendikar. I wanted to go back. I saw that my video was like 15 minutes, and I'm like, man, I talked about jack shit when it came to this, didn't I? And a lot of stuff has happened since I did that video, too. The invasion, the multiverse, Zendikar Rising, I think, even happened during that time period since I did that video. So these update videos, deep diving into it, might occur in the future, and I might revisit Zendikar if we get another set and talk about what's changed and evolved in the plane as this Zendikar update video. But for now, I hope everybody has enjoyed, and remember to check out all my other stuff. My normal days for doing videos like this are Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. Saturday's a backup day, where you can catch me live over on Twitch. I did put them up on YouTube, usually a couple days later, depending on the schedule. Try to only keep 1 video a day. I have social media link below. I do other stuff on Twitch. I have a live play of a role-playing game, TTRPG, Crimson Queen. That's on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. EST, and discussing tabletop at 6 p.m. I think that's all the shout-outs I can do. I said all my stuff at the beginning. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed joining me, and until the next time we talk about Magic the Gathering, some other tabletop lore, maybe some mechanics and some stuff, I bid you all out there a deep and wonderful farewell.